If you recall, when we reviewed Rat Queens Volume 1 and 2, we said,
every once in a while a body of work comes around and rips your heart out of your chest, runs away with it, and turns and looks you dead in the eye and just eats it in front of you.
This time around the heart thief is Rat Queens, and let me tell you, I do not want my heart back. It can keep it. So naturally, we were dying to get our hands on Volume 3. We waited months. We lent out our copies to anybody who would listen.
I mean, it was so witty, so well written, so engaging, so perfect. And then Volume 3 happened. I'm not exactly sure what went wrong. It's nothing in particular is awful, but compared to what we got in Volume 1 and 2, everything has been taken down a few levels. And I mean everything. Everything. So when you throw it all together, you just get a whole soup of
It's goddamn tragic, really.
Our story begins with the Rat Queens traveling to the Mage University to see what Hannah's father, Gerard, wanted. He's in trouble. He staged a coup against the Council of Mages that rule the university and lost.
After this brief introduction to Plot A, a whole bunch of B-plots and sub-stories get thrown at you very quickly. They get trapped by some goblins in a cave and fight their way out.
Then the girls stop at an inn and suddenly Betty's dark and shady past comes back to bite her in the ass.
It was never so much as hinted at the fact that Betty had a dark and shady past, and all of a sudden we have this cliche-looking assassin jumping out of nowhere and yelling, "Surprise! It's time to pay for your crimes!"
Violet comes in to save Betty, which, come on. Betty should have been able to save herself. She's freaking awesome. But she tells Violet about how she was framed for something and that there's a bounty on her head.
Oh, and by the way, she says, "Don't tell the others. I'm super embarrassed about it." What? Seriously, that is your reason for not telling the others that you have assassins hunting you down? These girls say things that would make hardcore sailors blush scarlet, and that is the most embarrassing thing you can think of?
Then they end up in another cave and have to fight their way out. Again.
The Rat Queens end up at the Mage City, and there are all these hints about what's going on with Hannah's past and her father. Chizzy shows up and spouts some information. Dee's brother shows up and spouts some information. Also Hannah's mom. Also this naked black alien thing. But this is intercut with what all the other Rat Queens are doing at the same time, which comes off as distracted and unfocused.
A lot of it could be taken out or repurposed into another scene, which would strengthen Plot A. You know, rather than have everything come off as complete distractions.
By the end of the book, we learn that Hannah quit school by murdering a whole bunch of the Mage Council's guards, and also that she made a contract with the Fiend, which was the source of the black magic in Volume 2.
We also learn that her mother was murdered, which comes off as completely unexpected. Yeah, I know there was that one scene in the last volume where her mother gets brutally murdered, but everyone was seeing visions. How were we supposed to know that it wasn't just a nightmare?
We also learn that her mother was an outspoken death magic activist who the council had assassinated for reasons. So Hannah's father orchestrated a first coup against the Mage Council to change things so that Hannah could have a normal life.
All of this is really vague. What were the real reasons for the council assassinating Hannah's mother, and what changed after the first coup?
The volume ends with the results of Plot A, which we will get to in a second, but first let's take a look at what the other three girls were doing while all this is going on.
Violet and Betty go on a sled ride. Yes, a sled ride. Okay, so it ends up with them running into a dragon, but still, it's a fairly unimportant side story. Violet may or may not have picked up a cursed sword. Nothing about that sword says creepy, right?
Dee runs into her brother, and she finally tells us what she found out when she became the high priestess of her people.
This part is really cool, and I really wish it had been given more time. Apparently, Nigroth and his tentacle friends were bound by Dee's people and put into an eternal slumber. They can only keep him asleep if they keep doing rituals that drain its magical energy. If he wakes up, he'll destroy the world.
So cool.
But no. Everything pretty much gears up for the ending where the queens all learn about Hannah's past. And despite the fact that they're like, "It hasn't changed anything, don't do this. We aren't judging you, Hannah, gods damn it. The past is the past. We can work through that. I don't give a damn about the past. And we never said we wouldn't help." Hannah still walks out, going on about how she has no friends and no one could ever love a demon baby.
The end feels like they're having a conversation and Hannah can't hear the other three girls. The other three girls don't even have to be in the same room for this argument. It's really frustrating when, in the last two volumes, their relationship was based on a strong amount of trust and support, and then it's just all thrown out the window for the sake of drama.
I guess the biggest problem is that there's no build-up to this schism. It was just thrown at you at the end. No minor conflict beforehand, and just bam! No one understands me!
Characterization has really gone downhill. Hannah, by the end, has her big, uncharacteristic, or at least poorly written, meltdown. Betty, who was always the most sensitive to the other's feelings, comes across as a bit wimpy. Violet is more or less just in the story for backup and comic relief, and Dee is the only one who seems to be actually on par since the last volume.
The first 2 volumes were chock full of clever moments and witty one-liners that kept you laughing long after you put the book down. This one, not so much. Almost none, actually.
The story could have benefited from some serious world building. The Queens were mercenaries living in a small little town, and it didn't take much explaining. It was a great place for them to start because you could just focus on the character building.
Now you have a firm idea of who the girls are, so they're moving out into the wide world, and it has its own rules and systems. There are so many questions that could have been answered about this world that could have given plot A some weight. About the Mage University alone. How long has the university been operating?
What are the qualifications for admission?
What were classes like?
Hannah hated it there and wasn't suited to university life. Why?
What qualities was she lacking?
What kind of power does the council have over the university and its students?
How do they wield that power?
How does the university relate to the magical community at large? All of these questions have a large bearing on Hannah and her quest to rescue her father. There should have been a lot of flashbacks or something to explain all these things to us and really make us care.
This volume isn't awful. I mean, the writing is average, the characters are average, the plot is average, and the art is average.
But when your first 2 albums were American Idiot and Purple Rain, anything less, the flaws are just really noticeable.
Definitely not enough to make you never want to read the series again. It just puts a damper on your enthusiasm. All I can hope is that the next volume gets reined in a bit, takes a little bit more time, and remembers why the first 2 were so successful.
Until then, we are going to hold our breath. So this better be good. Ready? 1, 2, 3.